Hello, everyone, and many thanks for joining this stream, for your attention, and of course, many thanks to all the members of our community who will join later on this stream or will watch your video afterwards. Today is 4th of May. Now it's 11 o'clock in the morning, Moscow time, and I have prepared quite a number of news on some major developments, and I hope you'll find this episode informative and useful. And I should mention that I received one question through Patreon from a member of our Patreon community, and I will answer to that question after news segment. If there will be any comments or the questions that members of community want to be highlighted during the stream, either through support platforms on PayPal, Boosty, or during on Rumble as a super chatter, of course, I will highlight that question or the comment also after news segment. Okay, that's being said, dear friends, let's start today's live stream. And the first news that I want to share with you is this one from RIA Novosti about Crimean Bridge. So traffic on Crimean Bridge is proceeding as usual. According to RIA Novosti, this was reported by the Russian Ministry of Transport on its Telegram channel. And I'm beginning this stream with this news because yesterday, as many of you already, I guess, know, there was a attack on Crimean Bridge. Early in the morning, a number of Telegram channels reported that Ukrainian drone was shot down over the bridge. And such an occasion only happened year before when literally in close proximity from the bridge was an aerial target intercepted. And a year before that was the ATACMS, US-made ATACMS missile. Yesterday, reports were about a Ukrainian aircraft-type drone that was intercepted over the bridge early in the morning. But because big channels, big Telegram channels or media outlets didn't report about it, I did not share that information. I was waiting for some more news, and later on, after yesterday's stream, Telegram channels start sharing video that was originated from Kiev regime, as far as I understand, with explosion under the bridge. I guess Kiev regime used, with assistance of UK, of course, used its underwater drone. And right now on your screen, you see this video, by the way, explosion. It was not a huge explosion that is capable of destroying a bridge big time, but potentially this kind of explosion can damage a bridge, obviously. And there was a minor damage done according to reports. Let's see once again this explosion. So yeah, that was an explosion, by the way. And there are many Telegram channels reported that most likely Kiev regime used their underwater drone, maritime drone, to strike the bridge. And later on yesterday, reports start coming in that additional maritime drones were destroyed by Russian forces. Lancet drone was used for that purpose, and maybe Russian side will adopt deployment of Lancet drones against these maritime drones, because it seems like they are quite effective mean to neutralize this target. So that is the information in regards to Crimean Bridge. Traffic was stopped yesterday twice, early in the morning and in the afternoon, I believe. But later on, bridge start operating as usual. Yet another terrorist attack of Kiev regime, and this is clearly a terrorist attack because as many members of our community know, and even Western media outlets are acknowledging, Russia is not really using this bridge as a logistical mean to transfer any weapons or munition into Crimea, for example. There is a land bridge, massive land bridge from mainland Russia to Crimea. You can see on your screen right now, and therefore there is no need to use for military purposes Crimean Bridge. But nevertheless, because of the, let's say, PR significance for Kiev regime of such terrorist attacks, they continue time and time again to strike this bridge. Obviously, this attack was conducted with the involvement of United Kingdom's military personnel, security services, because all these operations on the southern sectors are overseen by British intelligence and militaries, including maritime activity with these drones. And I don't know when and how, but I guess at some point Russia will have no option but to take some retaliatory strikes on time of its choosing. And citizens of UK, if anything, should be angry for that on their own government that is basically on daily basis conducting acts of war against Russia. That's how it is, basically. So yes, bridge is operating as usual right now, but of course there is no guarantees that London and the Kiev regime will not conduct additional strikes against this bridge or any other civilian infrastructure in Russia. That's what they do on regular basis. Let's continue with this news from RIA Novosti that several group of forces of the Russian Federation liberated Andreevka settlement in the Sumy region. As I reported earlier in previous updates, Russian armed forces conducting local-scale offensive operations in many areas of the front line, and one of the areas is, of course, the Sumy region, where buffer zone is created quite actively and rapidly, I will say. And this is settlement of Andreevka, by the way, which is under full Russian control now. And according to latest reports, Russian troops are advancing in settlement of Malaya Karchakovka, and potentially before end of this day, this settlement will be under full Russian control also. Although let's wait and see how the situation will develop. But advance of Russian troops in the Sumy region to create a buffer zone is definitely quite impressive, and I guess it will take maybe a week or two, and Russian troops will reach this forestry area. All the settlements north of this massive forestry will be liberated by Russian troops, and then I guess it will take another several weeks, maybe even months, to clear this forestry area from the enemy forces. And after this massive forest, there is a Sumy, several settlements, and then Sumy city itself. Some reports are suggesting that Russian troops might actually bypass this forestry and advance towards Sumy from western side, possibility for sure. And some reports are suggesting that at the same time Russian troops might conduct a similar sort of pincer movement in Kharkov direction also. But yet again, I'm not a military expert, and therefore I don't really have a strong opinion on that. It's up to Russia's general staff, obviously, how they will conduct military operations. But clearly, Russian troops are advancing all along the front line, and this advance is especially noticeable in the Sumy region, in the Kharkov region, in DPR, obviously, where Russian troops are advancing literally on daily basis and improving positions in Pokrovsk, Mirnograd area on the northern eastern side of this agglomeration. And also on the south western side, where Russian troops basically already are on several sectors on the border with Dnipropetrovsk region, and it's only a matter of order from Moscow, and Russian troops probably will cross border and begin liberating people and their settlements in Dnipropetrovsk region too. That's been said, dear friends. Let's go through some other news that are making headlines here in Russia. And RIA Novosti is also reporting that, well, allegedly, Kiev did not notify Trump, president of US, about attacks on Russian strategical airfields. This was stated by White House. Let's go through some details here. So, Ukraine did not warn US President Donald Trump about attacks on Russian airfields. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt stated, we have a quote from her. He was not, she said, when asked whether Trump had been informed in advance by Kiev authorities. The day before, Leavitt was asked to talk about the American leader's reaction to what happened. The head of the White House, according to her, said that this war must be put to an end. So no reaction for now from Trump, and obviously none of us and hardly anybody in this world really believes that Trump was uninformed about this combined US, UK, Ukraine attack on Russian strategical airfields. This is just impossible to believe that Trump did not know about it. He knew about it and he authorized this attack, and same was done by Prime Minister of UK, Keir Starmer. This is 1,000,000%, by the way. There can be no doubts about that. And it is unfortunate. What can I say? It is unfortunate that instead of truly de-escalating with Russia, Trump and his administration, the so-called America First people, lied not just to Americans, by the way, but they lied to rest of the world, and they lied to Russian side also during several rounds of talks between US and Russian delegations when representatives of Washington were making statements that they are all about the escalation and stuff. No, they are not, by the way. And at this point, I guess this is just way too clear to have any doubts about that. I can imagine how disappointed many US citizens are with this administration. Definitely more than me. That's for sure, right? Because after all, it's a US that being put in harm's way due to criminal terrorist activity of their political military leadership. It is what it is, and of course, many people worldwide are wondering how Russia will respond on these attacks on its nuclear triad. Until now, there was no statements from Kremlin, from President of Russia, about these attacks. But today, he will have a meeting with the Russian government. Topic of discussion is some economical stuff, I believe. But maybe during this meeting, Russian president will address these attacks on Russian strategical airfields. We will find out. And of course, if any update on that, I will share additional information on my Telegram and Twitter X page and during the next video updates, next live stream. But what we have for now is a reaction from Medvedev, former Russian president and current deputy chairman of the Security Council. I can go through some of his statements in this regards. And for example, he said that Russian retaliation is inevitable. So Russia will inevitably respond to recent Ukrainian attacks on its territory, despite continuing diplomatic efforts to reach a peaceful settlement of the conflict, former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev stated on Tuesday. His comments follow suspected acts of Ukrainian sabotage on railways in Russia and drone strikes on multiple Russian airfields at the weekend. Despite this, Russian officials traveled to Istanbul on Monday for another round of direct negotiations with Ukrainian representatives. In a social media post, Medvedev addressed domestic calls for a more forceful military response, declaring that Russian retaliation was inevitable. We have a quote from Medvedev: "Our army is on an active offensive and will continue its push forward. Everything that needs to be blown up will be, and those who need to be eliminated will be," he wrote. Medvedev, who currently serves as a deputy chair of Russia's Security Council, said there Istanbul negotiations were necessary for our victory to be most swifter and the full elimination of their neo-Nazi authorities in Kiev. This is a response from Medvedev, by the way, who is also a high-ranking official. He is deputy chairman of the Security Council, former Russian president, and who knows, maybe future Russian president. Theoretically, that might be a possibility also. But obviously, everybody is expecting statements from Russian president, current president, Vladimir Putin. And as I said, maybe today during the meeting with the government, with the cabinet, he will make some statements. Clearly a possibility. But meanwhile, dear friends, we have this report that Pentagon chief to skip Ukraine aid contact group meeting for the first time, reported by TASS, and originally this information was published by Associated Press. Let's go through some details here. U.S. Secretary of Defense Pat Hexet will skip a meeting of an international group to coordinate military aid to Ukraine for the first time since its creation 3 years ago. Associated Press reported, citing an anonymous U.S. officials. It has become a kind of usual practice, isn't it, when almost every information is based on some anonymous sources, and we just never know, is this information true or not? We just have to guess. And in this particular case, we are in exactly that situation. Who knows? Maybe Associated Press is correct. Maybe no. We will find out soon. According to source of this news agency, the Pentagon chief will not be present during the meeting due to Brussels scheduled in Brussels on Wednesday, today. His participation in their video conference format is also not expected. Their agency described the move as their latest in the series of Washington steps to distance itself from the conflict in Ukraine. Well, agency definitely is wrong in this regards because US just a couple of days ago orchestrated attack on Russia's nuclear triad together with the United Kingdom and their proxy Kiev regime. So therefore, US is not distancing itself from this conflict. It's exactly the opposite. Clearly, US is getting involved in this proxy war against Russia in more and more, right? And the actions of the US and its allies, its NATO allies, are becoming extremely dangerous, not just for Russia, but for the entire world, because yet again, they are crossing now red lines that are attack on nuclear triad is. They are crossing now red lines that are like some time ago, no one would even think about that is possible, right? So extremely dangerous developments, obviously, and I'm afraid involvement of US in this war against Russia will only increase, at least for time being, and Washington and other hostile capitals in the collective West will only really start de-escalating with Russia after they will finally realize that Russia has won and they have no chances to achieve strategical defeat of Russian Federation as their dream about and they're stated many times in publicly, right? So Associated Press is definitely wrong if they think that US is moving away from this proxy war. It's not the case. US continues to support Kyiv regime with intelligence in real time, with their weapons, munition, money, with everything, right? Logistics. So this is a Trump's war, by the way. This is definitely Trump's war too, as it was Biden's war. RIA Novosti, meanwhile, is reporting that, anti-Russian sanctions bill is basically ready for passage in U.S. Senate, according to a special envoy of U.S. President Kellogg. Let's dive into this news here for a little more details. The Senate is ready to pass a bill on the new sanctions against Russia, U.S. Presidential Special Envoy Kellogg said in an interview with the Fox News. We have a quote from Kellogg. I spoke to Lindsey Graham, U.S. psychopath senator, last weekend, and I think the senators are ready to act. They called it the Russia Sanctions Act of 2025, and I think Graham has it ready to go. These sanctions are going to be pretty tough, he said, and well, I guess maybe even this week, Senate or U.S. Senate will vote for this yet another anti-Russian sanctions, in which, by the way, main thing is that U.S. is intent to impose 500% tariffs. I mean, here in Russia, no one cares about sanctions that will impose on Russia because they're already about 40,000 sanctions on us, right? So we somehow managing to live with it. But in this particular sanctions package, U.S. Is intent to impose 500% tariffs on trade partners of Russia, right? And their biggest trade partners are, by the way, China, India, also Turkey, especially if it comes to energy exports. Even a number of European countries, by the way, are still buying quite a big volumes of Russian energy, right? Oil and gas. Many other countries worldwide, and therefore, some economical experts already are expressing opinion that this bill, if passed, this sanctions bill, will be extremely damaging, first of all, for US and for the collective West, because they will push, as I was saying before, by the way, they will push countries worldwide that are doing business with Russia to take some steps to distance themselves from collective West countries, to secure themselves, basically, because collective West is clearly become turned into axis of evil, and every other country in this world only expects harm from collective West countries, nothing positive, right? And I said, by the way, before that if this bill is passed, that will further accelerate isolation of the collective West from rest of the world. That's going to be main result of this sanctions package, in my personal opinion. But let's see how will situation develop. Maybe some adequate people in White House will prevail and stop this craziness, because they understand perfectly well these kind of actions will harm US first of all, right? Let's continue with some more news. And well, Ursula von der Leyen, Ursula washing machine, EU Commission chief, begs 500% US tariffs on Russian oil importers, even though it could hit EU members also and hit harder. Ursula von der Leyen signaled support for the US Senate bill after meeting with Republican Archduke Lindsey Graham. So Brussels once again demonstrating that they are not about interests of their citizens of EU member states. Absolutely not. All they care is whatever sick ideology they have, and that's about it, right? Because Ursula cannot know that EU member states are also buying Russian energy, and their economies are dependent on Russian relatively cheap energy, big time. And still, she is in support of these tariffs because she just don't care, man. And Brussels bureaucrats don't care in general. They demonstrated this so many times that at this point, I don't think anyone who is capable of critical thinking can have any doubts about this, right? It is what it is. And dear friends, before I continue with some more news, let me notice, if I may, that this independent media project is completely subscriber funded and exists only as long as the community supports my work. And if you like my channels, if you find my programs informative, useful, interesting, please consider to support her. You can do it through several means. You can donate to this project through PayPal platform or Boosty platform, or through crypto currencies. You can subscribe to my page on Patreon, of course, where I have a lot of extra content on regular basis. It's about 300 exclusive videos, by the way, for example, on Patreon for now, maybe even more at this point. And I'm sharing same exclusive content on Rumble, on Boosty page also. So, I mean, you can choose. You can, if you can afford monthly support, you can subscribe either to Patreon or Boosty, and of course that will be great support. And if you ask me, I would prefer obviously our community on Patreon to grow, because it does, and Boosty, by the way, because it does gives me opportunity to have more or less good understanding about funds that I'm operating with for the next months. While with donations, you just never know. One day, project might receive some donation from community. Another day, no. But on Patreon and Boosty, you have a little more information on that. And also, dear friends, during the streams, you can become premium subscriber on Rumble, or use Rumble as a mean to donate. You can use super chat feature there, because channel is monetized, and also donate directly. Okay, dear friends, that's been said. Let's continue with some more news that I have bookmarked for this update. And I think this information is quite interesting, that according to Russian diplomat, NATO's Baltic exercises are part of a preparation for military clash with Russia. This is reported by TASS news agency. Let's go for some little details. So NATO's Baltops 2025 naval exercises in the Baltic Sea are a part of their alliance's preparations for a potential military clash with Russia. Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Alexander Grushko has told the TASS. We have a quote here. We consider NATO's military activities to be a part of preparations for a military clash with Russia. If we look at what these drills are aimed at, look at their term, their structure of troops deployment, their capabilities, qualities, and objectives for these exercises, we will see that they are aimed at the countering matching adversary, which is Russia. He said, they are practicing superiority in all operational environments, on the ground, in the air, and the sea. The senior Russian diplomat added, of course, such exercises are extremely provocative. And by the way, right now, we're going to see a situation on the Baltics when there will be two naval exercises simultaneously, NATO exercises and also Russian Baltic fleets exercises, in which I believe a number of vessels from North Sea fleet are participating also. And as many even members of our community are suggesting in the comment sections, Baltic Sea is definitely one of the areas where we might at one point see direct clashes between NATO and Russian forces due to constant escalatory steps that NATO is taking in this direction. They are basically saying openly, not even hiding, officials from NATO member states, that they want to turn Baltic Sea into their kind of internal sea, internal lake, sort of, and disturb navigation that is connected with Russia. They are already harassing. There was many instances when they were harassing vessels that were either moving towards Russian ports or leaving Russian ports, and eventually Moscow had no option but to also take some actions. And when oil tanker was detained by Russian Navy, that was moving from Estonian port, because this game can be played by both sides, isn't it? And since then, I did not see in Russian media, at least, any reports about any vessel being harassed by NATO countries on the Baltics. But things might change. Things might change quite fast. So therefore, I agree with members of our community who considers Baltics to be one of the areas where NATO may actually provoke direct clash with Russian Federation. So therefore, this statement of Russian high-ranking diplomat should be taken seriously, and that's why I'm sharing. Moscow is monitoring situation, of course, and will take whatever steps are necessary to ensure security of the Russian interests, Russian citizens, and so on. And when it comes to escalation against Russia by NATO member states, we have this report from Vzglyad newspaper that Britain is going to increase its nuclear forces. UK government is considering expanding NATO's nuclear capabilities aimed at about doubts about the US readiness to defend Europe. Bloomberg reports Britain is considering stepping up its role in a NATO's nuclear deterrent aimed. I already said that. Why these media outlets are repeating same sentences? Twice. What the hell? Anyways, sorry, dear friends. So Prime Minister of UK, Keir Starmer, has promised to make Britain ready for a war to counter threat from Russia in Europe. If anybody is creating any threats in Europe, it's Europe itself, right? It's NATO member states, EU member states. This is just factual, right? UK is exploring new capabilities, including nuclear-capable fighter jets, to boost London's nuclear contribution through their alliance. Move would complement an already planned modernization of British nuclear forces, including an upgrade to their Trident system, a £15 billion investment, and they're building up to 12 new submarines under their AUKUS partnership with Australia and the US, aimed at concerns that Washington may reduce its support for European security. Discussions in Europe are intensifying over defense spending and nuclear safety. William Alberti, a senior fellow at the Pacific Forum in Berlin, said these measures are intended to offset the risk of possible weakening of US involvement in the alliance. Britain's security strategy review, published on Monday, specifically stated that their country was ready to take on a greater role in nuclear deterrence in the Euro-Atlantic region. The document reflects growing concerns among European leaders about the need to increase their own defense spending, and also takes into account calls by US President Donald Trump for NATO countries to increase defense spending to 5% of GDP. Ahead of review publication, Starmer told the BBC Radio, "They are right. We must collectively take greater responsibility. Currently, only UK and France possess nuclear weapons among European NATO members, and only Britain officially provides its nuclear forces to defend the alliance," according to Bloomberg publication. And one should keep in mind, dear friends, that UK will not be nuclear power if not US. UK's nuclear capabilities are 100% dependent on US Trident missiles, and separately, UK, without US assistance, UK would not be able to basically maintain its strategic nuclear fleet. It's just factual. Also, one should keep in mind that current nuclear submarines of UK, Vanguard class nuclear submarines, are like 40 years old or something like that, and barely, from 4 nuclear submarines, barely one is operational at any given time. And even though there is a programs to build new submarines, well, based on experience of newly built UK's aircraft carriers that are never operational, basically. They are constantly experiencing technical difficulties. It's a joke, right? Both aircraft carriers are a joke, right? Floating cans, basically. And I'm afraid a very similar situation will be with this newly built British nuclear submarine. And there are people that are living in areas where this nuclear submarine is gonna be parked. They should think about moving away from there, because based on quality of build of those aircraft carriers, one may assume that these new nuclear submarines of UK gonna be extreme hazard, right? They're gonna experience so many issues that they might create a nuclear disaster for UK without any assistance from any other actors. Let's say this way. Anyways, dear friends, NATO countries are escalating against Russia. They are already engaged in a proxy war against Russia. And unfortunately, as time goes by, I see more and more indicators that maybe direct clashes of certain level between Russia and NATO is even inevitable at this point. Unfortunate reality, but it is what it is. It's not Russia that is escalating. It's NATO that escalating constantly. Since the collapse of Soviet Union, collective West countries did try to devastate Russia, right? In many ways. And eventually they went in Ukraine in 2008, basically, when they opened the door of NATO. And by doing so, they basically themselves finish off this so-called Bucharest Memorandum, right, about neutrality of Ukraine. And after that, they conducted coup d'etat in Kiev and eventually provoked this tragedy that is happening right now, when Russia just had no option but to defend itself, defend Russian speakers in Ukraine and its national interests, national security interests, right? And doing this quite effectively. Meanwhile, RT is reporting that Germany, according to senior MP there, should expel all Russian diplomats. Okay, do it. A senior German lawmaker has called on Berlin to effectively cut diplomatic ties with Moscow to combat their hybrid threats he claims come from Russia. Nowadays, by the way, anything that goes wrong in collective West countries is being blamed on Russia, isn't it? If this morning, I mean, there is no water in your tap, you can go to work and say, you know what, Russian saboteurs, cut water supply to my building. And you know what ironic about it? Some people in your work would not take this as a joke or sarcasm. Some people actually believe in this because that's the level of anti-Russian hysteria and propaganda in the West, right? Unbelievable, man. We have a quote from this MP. We should expel any remaining diplomats. Roderick Kiesewetter, known for his hardline anti-Russian stance, told Handelsblatt on Tuesday. He argued that doing so would help reduce Russian influence in Germany. According to Kiesewetter, Germany is currently inadequately protected against cyber attacks, which he claims primarily originated from Russia. Oh yeah, of course. I mean, it's always Russia, but whatever goes wrong, it's just blame Russia. By the way, unbelievable. He specifically accused Moscow of attempting to change public opinion in Germany through these actions. He also accused China, North Korea, and Iran on launching hacking attacks. I mean, these psychopaths are so predictable, isn't it? All of them, it seems like they have some talking points, like they are receiving talking points time to time, and they go on air or whatever. They are just repeating these talking points time and again, and this is happening all over their collective West countries, isn't it? No original statements, no nothing. It's the same talking point from German Russophobes, from German psychos, from US psychos, from British psychos, French psychos. It's always the same talking points, right? Unbelievable. And people, by the way, unfortunately, vast majority of people in the collective West countries are buying into this crap. It's sad, but it is what it is. And you know what? Let Berlin go ahead with this initiative. Maybe it will serve Russia better, because I think at this point, and this is my personal opinion, dear friends, at this point, I think it won't worth to spend tens, potentially hundreds of millions of dollars every year to maintain embassies in hostile countries. So therefore, when it comes to Europe, let's keep one embassy in Belgrade, for example, in Serbia, which will operate as embassy in every other country, which will serve people, right, citizens in every European country. For example, if they want to acquire a visa or travel to Russia or migrate to Russia, there is wave, isn't it, of migration from their collective West countries to Russia. So to assist people that are not hostile, then one embassy in Belgrade will do the job, right? And just shut down all the other embassies, by the way, all over the Europe. This is my personal take, because how long you gonna give these psychos, either in Germany or in UK or elsewhere, to talk this nonsense time and time again? You want to expel Russian diplomats, just go ahead and do it, man. Right? I think one embassy in Belgrade will do the job for, and good job, by the way. It will manage to serve good citizens of European countries who want to either visit Russia for, and have a visa for that or whatever. I don't think this is going to happen, but it does make sense to me personally to cut spendings, because there is no diplomacy between Russia and European countries right now, isn't it? Russia has a diplomats. European countries have some psychopaths in the position of diplomats. So how are you going to talk to psychopaths? You tell me, dear friends. Is it even possible to find a common language or common ground? No. Russian diplomats are true diplomats. They are no psychiatrists, right? So, anyways, let's continue with some more news. TASS news agency is reporting that Israeli warplanes delivered a strike on Syria, again, on South Syria. So Israeli fighter jets delivered a strike on targets in southern Syria in response to Tuesday's shelling of its territory. The Israeli Defense Forces said, well, on Tuesday, according to reports that I see, there was some rockets fired from Syria into Golan Heights. Golan Heights, last time I checked, was Syria's territory, not Israel's territory, right? Anyways, Israel is escalating again with Syria, and that means Israel is escalating potentially with Turkey, because yet again, this proxy regime in Damascus is a Turkish proxy regime, first of all. Israel might and most likely have some influence there, some assets, as US does and UK. Usual stuff in the Middle East, isn't it? But first of all, this regime in Damascus is a Turkish proxy. And any attacks on that regime, and I believe Israeli officials claim that current head of this regime, Ashara or whatever his name is directly responsible for these attacks, according to Israel. So any attack on that regime in Damascus is basically escalation with Turkey. And let's see, who knows, man. One day, Israel's current leadership may actually end up in provoke military hostilities with the Turkey. And Turkey is not a joke, by the way. If anything, Turkey really has some quite capable militaries, right? Not just ground forces, but air force and so on. So it's not going to be easy work for Israel for sure to fight with Turkey. Meanwhile, when it comes to Middle East, we have this quite interesting news also from TASS that Tehran could wait nuclear deal with the US with Iran-based enrichment consortium. This was reported by Axios originally. So let's go for details. Tehran is demonstrating literally on daily basis that they are open for de-escalation. And they are trying hard, by the way, while know perfectly well that US is not an honest actor in these talks that is taking place for the last several months. But they still are trying hard to somehow persuade Washington to de-escalate. I don't think they're going to succeed there, unfortunately. But I mean, probably whole world has seen that Iran is a honest actor in these talks and US is not. But anyways, let's go through some details. So according to the reports, a sixth round of talks on Iranian nuclear program between US President Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Iran's top diplomat Abbas Araghchi, who is foreign minister, by the way, of Islamic Republic, could be held this weekend in a Middle Eastern country. Tehran would be ready to consider the latest US proposal for regional enrichment consortium if it is located on Iranian soil. Axios quoted the senior Iranian official as saying, we have quote here, if the consortium operates within the territory of Iran, it might consider worth consideration. However, should it be based outside the borders of the country, it is certainly doomed to fail, the official told Axios. According to US news website, apart from the United States and Iran, the consortium would include Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, and Turkey. It would be monitored by the inspectors from the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, and supply fuel to countries that seek to develop civilian nuclear programs. According to Axios, a sixth round of talks on Iranian nuclear program between US and Iran representatives could be held this weekend in a Middle Eastern country, most likely in Oman, because Oman is mediating. And by the way, it's a sensible proposal from Iranian side, isn't it? They said many times before that they're not going to dismantle the enrichment capabilities. They want to be autonomous when it comes to their nuclear program. And they are willing to participate in a consortium, which will be where IAEA will have its experts, and IAEA controlled basically by US, by the way. So by doing so, US will have real-time information about activity of these enrichment facilities, right? So it will know if Iran is enriching uranium up to military grade or not. So good idea. That could work actually if US is an honest actor and really wants to just make sure that Iran is not building atomic bombs. But is US an honest actor? Of course not, Bob. Of course not. And just yesterday or day before, US President Donald Trump once again posted in his true social media that according to him, Iran should not have no enrichment capabilities whatsoever. So where these talks gonna go when US's position is definitely not constructive. It's just a game on part of US. They are playing this game, preparing military assault on Iran, and at one point when they will consider that they are ready to attack, they will just walk away from these talks. And will say, you know what, they tried to reach agreement diplomatically while they didn't try nothing. They were just messing around. It is what it is. And I know this. I'm quite sure everybody or majority of people that pays attention to these developments are on the same page with that. And I believe leadership of Iran is on the same page also. And that's why high-ranking officials in Iran time and again are saying that they know they're going to end up in a war with their great powers and they are ready for it. Although they would prefer, obviously, diplomatic solution, but, Our team, meanwhile, is reporting that, there is some significant rift between Elon Musk and Trump and Trump's administration at this point, I guess, because he had some strong words, very strong words to say about this so-called big, beautiful bill that Trump is talking about for so long now. So tech billionaire and former White House efficiency czar Elon Musk had blasted US President Donald Trump's big, beautiful tax bill as a overspending and a disgusting abomination. Excuse me. Trump's centerpiece bill narrowly passed in the House of Representatives last week and will need to go before the Senate. The legislation aims to prevent an end-of-year tax increase and raises the limit on the already staggering U.S. debt by further $4 trillion. Further $4 trillion, by the way, dollars. This is crazy. This is unbelievable, by the way. No wonder Musk is not happy with this, because his goal was to cut federal spending and to deal with the US debt that country is barely able to service right now. But he did find out soon that all these statements from Trump that they're going to cut federal spending and so on was just a BS, nothing serious. They were just lying to public, by the way. They were just lying to people, right? And that's about it. And that's why, by the way, one of the first moves that Trump took is to increase spending on the Pentagon, for example, over $1 trillion. And he introduced this Golden Dome nonsense, right, which will cost US citizens additional, God knows how many trillions, by the way, and it will not work eventually. All this program is just a attempt to further enrich military-industrial complex and to satisfy their appetite. That's all it is, right? Even tiny Israel, by the way, with one of the most sophisticated air defense systems, is unable to intercept 100% of aerial targets, even simple rockets, by the way, that are fired from Hamas. So how US gonna build a system that will cover entire US, by the way, and Alaska, and talks are that Canada may be part of it. It's just technically impossible, absolutely impossible, right? But as an idea, it's been sold to US public. They bought it. And now military-industrial complex there is ready to receive hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars, by the way. And Musk is not happy about it, understandably so. So Musk, who recently stepped down as head of Department of the Government Efficiency, DOGE, has repeatedly criticized the bill, claiming it compromises his efforts to trim the fat of their federal budget. Quote here from Musk's statement, I just can't stand it anymore. This massive, outrageous pork-filled congressional spending bill is a disgusting abomination, he wrote on X on Tuesday. And, well, probably Musk, for his statements, gonna end up being first isolated from White House, and then he might experience some big difficulties, by the way, because Trump will go after him, most likely, and big time. And Trump will use state institutions as his personal tools to destroy Musk. I think that's a possibility anyways. And if Musk is clever enough, he should flee US right now. He should flee US, move his assets outside of US, and find a place where, you know, he would not be used and abused by freaking clowns that are charged, formally at least, charged in US. Anyways, it is you know, quite sad to see this accelerated decline of morality and principles in US, because after all, this country was founded on very different ideas than it represents now. Anyways, dear friends, meanwhile, we have this report that I shared on my Telegram and Twitter X page that Trump is obsessed, allegedly, with getting Xi Jinping, Chinese leader, on the phone to revive stalled US-China trade talks, according to Politico. China's chokehold on key minerals raises their stakes beyond tariffs, hitting tech, defense, and supply chains. 600 billion standoff. This is 600 billion standoff, by the way, and the fragile truce and the high-risk geopolitical game on part of US, and US gonna lose this game, but US is in no position and was in no position to try to bully the entire world as Trump attempted and still continues to do so. And seems like he's struggling to realize that he failed. Basically, the world is laughing at this point, isn't it? Because one day Trump is introducing tariffs, next day he's refusing to introduce them. Then another threats that we're going to do this and that and 500% tariffs. Day after, he's backing down. What the hell, man? US is being turned, Washington especially, is being turned into some freaking circus, by the way, at this point, isn't it? I mean, you will struggle to find even one adequate individual among political class there in Washington, isn't it? From thousands of elements, you would struggle to find at least several adequate people, man. That's how bad situation is there. That's how I see it, at least, and our friends from US, members of our community, can express their opinion, what they think, but probably they are also shocked by these crazy developments. TASS news agency is also reporting, meanwhile, that, Russia and China won't sell each other out for US perks, according to Russian officials. So while US is entering some darker forest with this hostility towards everybody, Moscow continues to further develop relationships with countries outside of the collective West, which is the rest of the world, basically, much bigger than this tiny collective West. Of course, relationships are improving big time with China. And if anybody was hoping in Washington that they will manage to derail this partnership, they're going to fail big time. And this information is exactly about that. So Moscow and Beijing will not throw away their partnership for the sake of some economic benefits offered by Washington. Russian presidential envoy for relations with international organizations, Boris Titov, stated, we have a quote from him, today the world is changing so swiftly and dramatically that old partners will naturally stick together. In this sense, the trust between us and China is not for sale, even for some serious economic benefits, because no matter what their initiatives are promised, you can't still be cheated if there is no trust. You can still be cheated if there is no trust. And we have such relations of trust, relations and the trust, both political and humanitarian, Russia and China, that neither Russia or China will betray this. He told TASS news agency when asked whether United States would ever manage to come between Russia and China, and this is exactly the right position. Sad to say, but U.S. political class cannot be trusted ever. Ever. So therefore, obviously, Moscow to stick to its policies to build their good, great relationships, partnerships with their countries worldwide, right? Especially with strategical partners. And of course, Russia will cherish these relationships as Russian partners will do, because it's beneficial for all sides, right, involved. So this is Moscow's answer, by the way, on some questions that have been raised in the West, especially if US will manage to derail relationships between Moscow and Beijing. No, US will fail in that, and collective West will fail in general. Also, when it comes to Global South, dear friends, we have this report from RIA Novosti that J Mang wins South Korean presidential elections. Democratic candidate J Mang, I'm butchering his name, most likely. Sorry for that. But this person won their South Korean presidential elections after 100% of the votes were proceeded, according to data from Central Election Commission of Republic of Korea. And J Mang received 49.42% of the votes to win these elections, while his rival from the Civilian Power Party, Kim Moon-soo, received just 41.15%. And well, I'm sharing this information because it's a South Korea, by the way, one of their big economics, right, and technological hubs in this world. And also, I'm sharing this information because, according to reports that I see on internet this morning, this person is about good working relationships with China, Russia, India, with everybody. Basically, is not a hawk, not a war hawk. Yet again, according to reports, I don't know who this person is. I heard about him just today, by the way, right? But according to reports, he's more for the escalation in the region and for cooperation and that kind of stuff. And if true, then great. Great. South Korea and Russia had quite a good economical partnership, by the way, but by previous governments, this partnership was destroyed in many ways. Let's see if under new leadership, Seoul will try to rebuild whatever can be rebuilt in this regard. And a few more news, dear friends, and that's gonna be it for today's morning live stream. Gazeta.ru is reporting that EU has reduced LNG imports from Russia and sharply increased its purchases from the US. Okay, not really surprises here. Although, well, citizens of European countries gonna feel it because this LNG from US just will cost significantly more than Russian gas, but they get used to it at this point, I guess. When energy cost is going up and up and up, and inflation seems unstoppable, it is what it is. They should thank their own governments, right? And Brussels, unelected bureaucrats in Brussels. But anyways, let's go for some details here. In January-April 2025, Russia reduced its exports of liquefied natural gas to Europe by 2.4% compared to same period in 2024. This is evidenced by data from the Bruegel Analytics Center. TASS reports the volume of supplied amounted to 7.6 billion cubic meters, while in 2024, same period of time, it was 7.8 billion cubic meters. Little decline there. At the same time, the EU simultaneously increased its gas purchases from the American direction, from the US, and the Trinidad and Tobago to record 27.4 billion cubic meters, which is 23% more than in the same period in 2024. So yes, I mean, US is definitely, together with Norway, are becoming major energy suppliers, gas suppliers for Europe, and locals are feeling this because everything is getting more pricey, including energy itself, electricity. And this process will continue, and my hope as a Russian citizen really is that Russian energy sector will, in next several years, let's say next 3 to 5, maybe 10 years, will diversify so much so and focus on other markets that Russia will manage to ignore European energy market completely. Hopefully that will happen. And that's the way to go. I don't think Russia needs to sell any energy to Europe. Really, there is a huge world out there. We just need to build a network. We just need to build a new network to trade with the rest of the world, right? And process is underway, obviously, and the Russian energy exports already being diversified big time, but a little more needs to be done so that Russia will be completely free from any dependence on European market. Hopefully in next 5 to 10 years that will be achieved. And when it comes to EU itself, well, let EU member states buy energy from US, from I don't know, from Norway, as they do already, from Qatar, Australia, from whomever. Okay, and pay like 20-30% more. It's none of Russia's concern, really, right? we should be focused on diversification, and Russia is doing quite well in this regard. And I'm saying so because I mean, it is so clear at this point that Europe cannot be trusted, right? It just, unfortunately, and I'm saying so, being not happy about it, because it is sad. It is sad. I mean, Europe and Russia should cooperate, not be hostile to each other. But unfortunately, globalist control regimes in Europe, in the collective West countries, are doing everything to destroy any potential cooperation. So therefore, Russia don't really have much option but to, move on, basically. That's what it is, and we will. And I'm gonna end this update, dear friends, on this news that from RIA Novosti also, that Russia is about to deploy over 100 satellites to control drones. I think this is interesting news. Russia will deploy more than 100 satellites in orbit to control drones. Roscosmos head Dmitry Bakanov stated deployment of satellite network in the interests of Russian 102 plus spacecraft or satellites, says the slide that he presented at the presentation of the National Space Exploration Project at their SIPR 2025 conference in Nizhny Novgorod. The national project also provides for the launch of 886 Rassvet broadband internet satellites, 114 if remote sensing devices. The head of Roscosmos also noted that the accuracy of the GLONASS navigation system, which is analog to the GPS, US GPS, could be increased to tens of centimeters by 2030, 2035. It is already quite accurate, by the way, and now accuracy, I mean, increase of accuracy is about centimeters, right? Which tells the story. Well, for 2030, 2035, GLONASS will be much more accurate, which with the help of satellites from their Bureau 1440. Bakanov clarified that the Strategic Council under their president will consider their national project on June the 10th. So some good news for Russia here. Russian orbital grouping is increasing, and this is all good, by the way. Russian capabilities, civilian and military capabilities, will also increase, obviously, and that will keep us a little more safer, I guess. So it's all good, right? And that's it for today's live stream. News segment, sorry. As I said in the beginning, dear friends, member of our Patreon community send me a question, and I'm gonna answer to that question now. So, question is from Yaroslav Pelchek. So I heard that Russian bombers were out on the open because of the START treaty in order that their powers could see what's happening with them. Is it true? Yes, it is true, Yaroslav. It is true. There is a START and the SWORD treaties, right, in place. And even though Russia and US officially stated that they are pausing their participation in these treaties, both countries were still acting as if they are fully, obliged to these treaties, right? And therefore, Russian strategical bombers were on open air. This is true. This is true, by the way. And US bombers, by the way, should be in open air too, so that both countries can monitor in real time movement of these strategical bombers. These treaties are not about strategical bombers. These treaties are, START treaty is a strategic arms reduction treaty, and SWORD treaty is about strategical. It's about strategic offensive reduction treaty, right? And these treaties are about all nuclear delivery systems, ICBMs, planes, and so on. And based on these treaties, as many experts highlighted, by the way, when questions were rising why these planes were in open air and so on, that's because it's based on the treaties, right? And you want Russia and the US to be sure that they are not launching missiles against each other. And one way to monitor the situation and be a little more calmer is to have an opportunity to track these planes, for example, in real time. Now, when US share their intelligence information with UK and their proxy key regime, obviously Russia will have no option but to cover strategical bombers. Because we all understand that it was US that shared information about these bombers with UK and their proxy key regime, and they together conducted these recent attacks on Russian strategical airfields, right? So Moscow don't really have much options now, but to say, you know what, we try to be nice, but I mean, you don't want it, so okay. Now we are hiding our bombers, and you're just gonna have to guess where these bombers are and what they are doing. Does it make Washington more safer? I don't think so. Or the US? I don't think so. But seems like Trump don't really cares about any of it, right? Because he authorized this terrorist attack basically on Russian nuclear triad, and it is a terrorist attack, by the way, because militaries have no right to disguise military equipment as a civilian. This is a war crime. Nobody in the West basically paid any attention to it, right? But if militaries are disguising military equipment, and these drones were clearly military equipment, right? And these containers, these trucks, where these drones were located, they disguise it as a civilian. So it's a war crime and it's a terrorist attack. It's not military operation, it's a terrorist attack, by the way, and a war crime. But anyways, by the way, your understanding of the situation is absolutely correct, Yaroslav. Russian strategical bombers were in open air because of the START and SORT treaties. But now, obviously, Moscow has no option but to take action and hide these bombers because, as I said, US can monitor based on agreements. US could monitor movement of Russian bombers in real time, and that's why, by the way, this is one of the reasons why whenever Russian Tu-22s or Tu-95s were taking off to launch missiles against military and logistical infrastructure of the Kyiv regime, Zelensky and his criminal associates knew straight away that Russian bombers were in air, because US, as I said, were monitoring these bases on real time based on agreements, but they should not share this information with no one, but they were doing this. Anyways, things gonna change, by the way. Things gonna change big time because, yet again, unfortunately, collective West countries, especially US, UK, France, Germany, and a number of others are escalating on daily basis, and so much so that at this point, I think direct clashes between Russia and NATO is even inevitable. Only question I have is the scale. That's the only question I have. It's a scale, by the way. On what scale these clashes will be. But unfortunately, sadly, at this point, I think direct clashes is just inevitable due to criminal, irresponsible activity and policies of the collective West countries, globalists, neocons, and whomever are in charge there in the West, right? So, dear friends, this is it for now. There was any super chat? So, dear friends, there was no super chat on Rumble. But yesterday there was a donation through PayPal from Ashar. Sorry if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly. Comment was work done. Arun News. Thank you very much for your 12. It is 12, isn't it? $12 donation. Truly appreciated your supporter. And so yes, this is it, dear friends. For now, hopefully you will find this episode informative, interesting, useful. And if you can, dear friends, after stream ends, please leave your take on my program in the comment section with what you agree, with what no, what you think about my presentation, news that I selected, and my opinions. I'm reading new comments, as you know, dear friends, and I'm learning quite a lot, by the way, from comments. So yes, if you can, please click that like button, leave some commentary, and if you come across of some short videos from this live stream, please pay some attention to it. Also, if you can like it, that will be good. It will help to reach wider audience. So thank you all, dear friends, for your attention. Have a wonderful day and take care. Bye for now.